And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our chefs for today. We have Jana. Jana, say hello. She's going to be teaching us how to make the bramboracka. Where are you?
Dobrý ráno, Kalifornie. Já jsem Jana.
Děkujem, Jano. Mileno, where are you? Say hello.
Ahoj, Milena, Denver, California.
Výborně. A Denisa, she's our baker for today, teaching us how to bake the babovka. Say hello, Denisa. We can't hear you, Denisa.
Denisa from Lafayette, California. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. And Milena, if you would like to take it away, we'll be listening.
Okay, I will be speaking English for everybody to understand. If you have any Czech questions, you can ask away. I can go back and forth, it will be fine. I'm going to be the one to walking you through the knedlo, vepro, zelo, a Czech classic. And we will start with making the knedlíky, and then we move over to the meat, and we will leave the zeli, the sauerkraut, to the very end. So I already have most of the things pre-measured, so we can move along quite quickly. So we will start with the droždí, with the yeast for the dumplings. You got it?
I got it.
So I already have pre-measured the 1 cup of water. The recipe you guys received is for 2 loaves of dumplings. I usually double it because I like to make life easier for me, so I don't have to clean up the kitchen, because making the flour, working with flour usually keeps the kitchen pretty floury. So I make a double and then I freeze the 2, but we're just gonna do with one single recipe. The ratio is 3 cups of flour, so I'm going to start with 1. I put it into the water, which is 1 cup of water. It's always the same ratio. 3 cups of flour, 1 cup of water. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of dry yeast. And we really want to make sure that the water is room temperature. It's not too hot, not too cold. And we're gonna put another, not even a full teaspoon of sugar. The yeast really likes sugar. So if we wanna get it going, we add a little bit of sugar and we stir it all together. It's about the thickness of a pancake batter. And we're gonna let it stand for the yeast to get from the dry state, kind of to wake it up so it will do what we need it to do. While that is happening, we're gonna move on to the pork roast. I, in this recipe, included the pork loin. Usually they come in about this long sleeve. It's an inexpensive cut. It's on the leaner side. I put it on after washing it, I put it on a tea towel so the meat is nice and dry. And I have the spices, which I have pepper, caraway seed, and salt. It's about half a teaspoon each for a 3 pound of meat. This is a very personal thing. Some people like it spicier, some people like it, kind of mellower. Some people watch their salt intake. So I will leave it up to you, to adjust the spices. But this is a good start to begin with. My family loves garlic, so I do include garlic in it. I cut it into slivers. And using your knife, you can make holes in your meat. Just a few, and you just take your garlic and you push it into the hole you just created with your knife. There we go. Doesn't want to go in. So we can put it into a bigger bowl. There you go. Okay.
Milena, how much does this garlic, doing this, how much does it affect the taste? Is it more of the aroma that you're getting, or will it really?
Yeah, it's a mainly of the aroma. And if you are a garlic lover, then now when I'm mixing the spices, you can put some crushed garlic in it and make it into a paste. And when you put it on the surface, you get more of the garlicky flavor, not just the aroma. But that was a great question. So now I mix the spices all together, and we're gonna coat the whole roast, flip it over, do the sides, kind of rub it all over the meat. And
Milena, could you please repeat? I know it's in the recipe, but somebody's
Yes.
asking about the spices, about how much did you use?
half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of freshly ground pepper, and half a teaspoon of caraway seeds. And I prefer to use the caraway seeds, which are crushed, because you can see that they're much smaller, and I feel that they release more of the fragrance, which I think it's very popular in the Czech cooking. We use a lot of caraway seeds in bread, in roasts, in rolls, rohlíky, housky, and so crushed caraway. And if you like, you can crush the garlic as well and put it all over your roast. And I take my roast out of the fridge about an hour before I want to roast it, so it's not too cold, and it makes the baking, the roasting, more even without drying, because pork can be tricky. It can become too dry, which I will talk about a little later. But get it into the oven so we can move on. I'm gonna slice the onion. I cut it in half and then make these nice moon-shaped slices. And break it up. Put it on the bottom of your pan. And I do put garlic in there. I peel my garlic ahead of time. So again, I have one messy kitchen only once, and then it lasts in the fridge for a week or two with a tightly screwed on lid. I'm gonna put the seasoned meat on top of the onions, and we're gonna just a splash, maybe quarter a cup of water on the bottom, and it will go into the oven. And the oven has been preheated for 375. And when the roast is this size, it's about 20 minutes per pound. So for 3-pound roast, it's gonna take about an hour. If the roast gets bigger than that, then you don't need quite as long time as 20 minutes per pound. You can go down, but that's why when I roast pork, especially pork loin, which is leaner, I love to have a meat thermometer, because if it gets too hot inside, then you're gonna end up with a dry and chewy and not that great. It might look pretty, but as the eating quality, it might not be that awesome.
Milena, can we talk about caraway seeds for just a second? There's a lot of chatter in the chat box.
Okay.
Caraway seeds, that's kmín in Czech, is that right?
Correct. Yes, that's me.
So the question is, where do you get good kmín in the US?
I get it online. Usually I bring it from Czechia, but like now, because we have not been able to go for a while, I got it online. So I can put that link for the spice store into the follow-up email. How about that?
That sounds great. Are there different, wait, let's see. Are there different kinds of kmín?
No, kmín is kmín. You can get either, but you can get the whole kmín, You can get powdered, which is really, really fine, or you can get crushed kmean. So you can, and it depends. It depends how you like it. You know, you can use all three. The powdered one, I don't even know what I would use the powdered one for, but I like the crushed one the best. And then the whole kmean is good, like for making sauerkraut or putting it into bread and stuff like that.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, so we will move on. The beginning of the knedlíky, 5 minutes for the starter. You know, you can see, you know, the little bubbles started popping up. So we can put that in the mixer, and we already put 1 cup of flour in there. We already have all the water we're gonna need. So we're gonna add 2 more cups of flour. And there are different kinds of knedlíky. The ones I make are the yeast knedlíky. They're not hoskové knedlíky because there are no hoska in there, no chunks of the bread. But if you do like hoskové knedlíky, if you like the mosaic of the hoskový knedlík, you can cut, you know, like, you know, my favorite one for those is Safeway's French bread. And if you have it sliced, it will make the work for you easier to cut little cubes, and you would do it with probably a day ahead start, because you don't want them fresh because they will disintegrate they will soak up the moisture from the dough and disintegrate. So you want them about a day old, and you can cut the cubes about a day prior and they will be perfect. So I just added 1 teaspoon of salt, and here we have 1 egg. I'm gonna put the egg in there and put it in the mixer. And the dough, I'm gonna talk before I start it on, you want a really stiff dough. The reason for it is that it will, when it rises, usually it kind of relaxes. And if it's loose, then your dumpling would kind of be wider than taller, and you want a nice oval shape, but it would collapse too much. So I will show you later how stiff the dough needs to be. When you start mixing, you might be thinking, wow, this is way too dry. I need to put more water. Resist the urge. Just wait. And in the recipe, you can see there, I included 4 pictures where we go from like a really shaggy, dry mass to a beautiful, smooth, satiny at the end. And all it takes is time. So do not, at least for the first 5 or 8 minutes, do not add anything. In about 8 minutes, we're gonna check back, and after that, everything is already cohesive. You can decide if you're gonna add a little more of water or a little more of flour. But when I say little more, I really mean little, like, you know, teaspoon wise. And so, but we're gonna address that later. So I'm gonna turn this on, and I'm gonna turn it over to Jana, who is gonna start with the soup.
But before you do, Milena, if I can borrow you for just 1 second. You said there would be 2 loaves, right, of knedlíky. How many knedlíky will that make? If you
it will serve easily family of 4, and you might have a few left over. So it will be probably, yeah, it would say count half of the loaf per person. So 20.
We heard that. Someone's giving you pointers. What if you don't have that kind of mixer that you're using? What can people use as an alternative?
Then you need a Popeye. Because you can do it by hand, totally, you know, it's doable, but it's a lot of work. I'm trying to make work easy. You can make it with the handheld mixer with the spiral. It needs to have the spiral attachments. You can use that, but again, the dough is going to be really stiff, so you would want to finish that one by hand. And you can start everything in a bowl. If you're working with your hands, start everything in a bowl, and when it starts coming all together, then put it on either on a counter or on a like a cooking board, and then you would knead it by hand until it would get all satiny and pretty. Did it answer the question?
I think so. Let us know in the chat if that did not. Another question is, can you make gluten-free dumplings?
I doubt it. Sorry.
Got it. And
Because
then,
you need gluten to hold it together. And because it's being boiled in water, it reacts with the water. So I don't, you know, I might be wrong, but I don't think so.
yeah, and I suppose historically it had to have been done somehow without mixers. So yes, mussels, that may be a key ingredient. There's one other, there was a return to the caraway question, and I think I understand. Somebody said there's, you know, where do you get good caraway seeds? And it's true that in the Czech Republic, things sort of taste better sometimes, right? I don't know, did others want to weigh in on this about finding good kmín in places? Milano, I know you said you've got a source online. Michelle, do you want more sources, or sort of what are you trying to get at what good means?
Oh yeah, I was curious why people said good, because I just use caraway and I'm not picky about it.
You know, it depends how old the spice is, because the older it is, it loses the fragrance. And so good means that it's fresh. So you want to usually get it from a good spice market where they have a good turnover, because that it guarantees that you get a fresher spice.
That makes sense, because people don't use it much here, so that makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
right.
okay.
And it goes for all spices, that they lose the fragrance with time.
Thank you very much. I'll let you turn it over to Jana now.
Very good.
Milano, thank you very much. This is wonderful. I love your mixer. I'm gonna aspire to get one of those. So I'm Jana. I was born in Prague, and I grew up having soup a lot. And as a child, sometimes that was difficult because it wasn't always what I wanted. But as a grown-up, I love soup. I make it often. It is food that soothes my stomach, and it is quite healthy and very quick to make. I'm going to give you a really quick tour right now, and I apologize. I don't have a cameraman like Milena does. And I'm going to just sort of lean down here. So I have everything prepared. The first thing is I'm boiling 8 cups of water to add 5 drumsticks, chicken drumsticks to the water. So I'm going to start making it with chicken. Quite often, bramboracku is a vegetarian soup, and it can be cooked very quickly. But I like to make my soup be a meal. I quite often eat it for lunch the next day and the next day and the next day. So the first step is I'm going to turn up the water, get those cleaned 5 chicken thighs in, partially cover, and start boiling. And so in about an hour or less, that will be ready. I also am going to start, and I already started, let's see if you can see this. I started chopping a half an onion, and the mushroom part is the most exciting part, lots of options. When I traveled to the Czech Republic, the last time I was there was in fall of 2019, and I have an aunt who always supplies me with dried mushrooms. And so that's what they look like right here. These are the dried mushrooms. They smell amazing. You don't need much, you need an ounce. Recently, I found, Milena turned me on to dried mushrooms from Amazon. Let me see if you can see this. So this is one brand that I tried. I would say, I don't know whether this is a good brand or not. I'm going to try them today. And about an ounce. This is 3 ounces. So it's about $5 an ounce for dried mushrooms. I'm going to use an ounce. And the first thing I need to do with these dried mushrooms is to hydrate them. So I'm going to put them in a bowl. And I'm going to go over here. Oh gosh, I hope you can see this. And I'm going to put in a cup of hot water, boiling water, and they need to sit, they need to hydrate. So I'm gonna put that in, and they really need to just be very happily hydrating. So while the water is cooking, I'm also going to, because I can never decide, I'm also going to take about 3 or 4 ounces, where's my bag, of Trader Joe's crimini mushrooms, the darker ones, not the white ones. And I'm also going to add some of these. I like mushrooms a lot. So I'm also going to take a half an onion, chopped onion, half of the bag of fresh mushrooms chopped up, and I'm going to saute them. And I'm actually going to saute them for a long time. Mushrooms are tricky. They are not easily digestible. Quite often in salads, when they're fresh, they can be tricky on certain people's digestive systems. So I'm going to be sauteing these at first high temperature with a little bit of butter, melted butter with the onions, and then let them simmer a little bit. If you need to add a tablespoon of water, you can, but you actually want them a little burnt, and that's all going to get added to the soup. I also have a half a teaspoon of cumin, of caraway seeds, and I get mine, and mine is probably now a little too old, but the last time I was in the Czech Republic, I stock up on these. I get 10 or 12 of these bags. They're 50 cents, 12 crowns. And I'm also in favor of the drcení, or the crushed, partially because it doesn't get caught between your teeth, and I can hide it in a recipe sometimes. My sons don't like the texture of the caraway seeds, but they love the flavor. So I hide it by getting crushed caraway seeds. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time chopping, sauteing in the next 15 or 20 minutes before you come back to me. And if you want, you can click on my view and pin me, even though I won't be talking, you'll be seeing me work. So since I don't have a cameraman, this is me, this is my kitchen, and I'll be doing a lot of chopping, sauteing. I have potatoes and carrots that I need to be getting busy with.
And Yano, before you take off and do that, can we ask you a couple questions?
Of course.
So do you ever use yellow onions? You were not using one today, can you?
Yes, absolutely. I just happened to not have a yellow onion today. It is going to get sauteed, and so the color will disappear. So I will start by sauteing the onion, adding the mushrooms, and then for 15 minutes, just letting it saute and really let those fresh mushrooms cook.
That sounds good. It's so funny. I feel like every Czech I know, including my parents, has a jar of dried mushrooms in a cupboard somewhere from somebody.
Yeah.
From a trip. Somebody's asking how long you think that, somebody's got 3-year-old mushrooms from relatives. How long do you think they last?
They don't, they're fine. As long as they don't get wet, so no moisture. So they do need to be in a jar. They need to be sealed. They're fine. These are 2.5 years old. So and I've had others as well. It's totally fine. They need to be in a dry place, and quite often not in a bag or crushed. They need to have room to sort of move around and breathe as well inside the jar.
Got it. Have you ever tried any of the dried mushrooms you can get in Asian stores?
No. And because the Asian store, they're a little bit slimier, they're not the right mushrooms. So the porcini mushrooms are the hryby. Tohle jsou hryby. Let me see if I can turn my camera or myself around and find, I'm already hydrating them. They are the brown, I think, I don't even know what they're called in English. Also the boleto, something, Milano, I don't know if you can help me. These are the porcini mushrooms that are the hryby, that are the most common, typical mushrooms that Czechs go mushroom picking for. And that is a national pastime. And by the way, Czechs don't die from eating the wrong mushrooms. Somehow we are genetically pre-programmed to know which ones to pick. Or if we're not genetically pre-programmed, they're like me. I've been picking mushrooms with my mother since I was a child. So I learned it along the way. And any other questions? Otherwise, I'd like to pass it on to Denisa.
One more quick one. Will we be seeing how you chop the potatoes or carrots? Is there a specific way you do it? Does it matter?
I make them pretty small so that everything cooks very quickly at the end. I add everything to the boiled chicken broth, and everything cooks very quickly. Everything's about 1/4 inch. Carrots, potatoes, onions.
Fantastic. I'll let you turn it over.
All right, Denisa, your turn.
Thank you, Yana. And I have to admit that soup is one of my favorites as well. And I have the best memories of my grandmother making it for us when my sister and I were little. So I completely agree. Soup is just awesome. So I will not be making soup today, but I will be making babovka. Babovka is a traditional Czech dessert, and it's usually eaten in the afternoon with coffee, and it's quite popular with kids and adults alike. The typical mold looks like this, and you pour the batter in, and then you tip it over and you eat it from the top. The mold has a big hole in it, and this type of baked good is popular in Central Europe, and it's could be made with yeast, it could be made with raisins, it could be made with a vanilla chocolate flavor. Our family likes the flavor that's vanilla with some walnuts, crushed walnuts in it, and also some chocolate flavored part of it. So what I have ready here, and I hope you can see it, we have some flour, sugar, then I have vanilla sugar that I typically bring from the Czech Republic. You can also buy it at Cost Plus here in the United States. Then also we have the baking powder. And again, I sometimes bring it from the Czech Republic. Sometimes I buy it here. We have crushed walnuts. We have 4 eggs. We have vanilla. In case somebody wants to add it, I usually add very little since I'm adding vanilla sugar already. And for the, instead of butter, I'm using cream. And we have a powdered sugar for frosting or for just powdering the top when it's done. I've got a cup of sugar. This is flour it's not a regular type of American flour. This is the type of flour that is from the Czech Republic. You can purchase it here under Wondra brand, and it's a little more coarse than the regular flour. And then some unsweetened cocoa to flavor part of the babovka. I also have a sifter. I like to sift flour, and a mixing spoon and a spoon for taking it out. So what I usually start with is greasing the mold. And to grease the mold, you have to be very specific and careful, because if you leave a part out, then it won't pop out correctly when it's cooler. So what I've already done is I greased it, and I usually use a piece of paper and I use my finger because I can feel it better which parts I missed or did not miss. And again, it's pretty important to grease every single part of it, all the crevices and the interior, the inside part. As I said, I've already done this, so I'm just finishing it up. It usually takes about a minute or two to do it. Then what you do is you put a little bit of flour, the coarse flour in, and you shake it up and cover the whole mold. And this is the time when the truth comes out. If you've missed a part, this is where it's going to be very visible, because there's going to be one part that just isn't covered at all. And I think I did a pretty good job when most of it is covered. Some people I've seen can also line it instead of flour. You can also put slivered almonds. I haven't had much luck with it, but I know you can do that too. So when you take the mold out, it has almonds on the outside of the baked product. So our mold is ready. And what I usually start with, and this is going to be babovka with, as I said, sugar, flour, walnuts, and cream. I usually start with 4 eggs. And I open up the whole eggs. And I mixed 4 eggs with the 1 cup of sugar. I already pre-measured it. Here is regular sugar. And I whisk it. Until it's blended. You don't have to whisk it for too long.
Sorry, I didn't, I don't know if this is a good time to ask a couple of quick questions. Could you be using a bread loaf pan instead of the form that you use?
So you can use whatever form you want, and I'm sure the batter could be used for other things. Now, if you're making a typical babovka, then babovka is this. That's what makes it babovka. You can make, and of course, in the United States, you can purchase it, or you can have it under the Bundt. It could be a Bundt cake, it could be marble cake, it could be babka, it could be a panettone. So it's different versions of the same type of product. But again, this is what makes it babovka. And Jano or Milano, if you need to show something else, this would be a good time to switch.
Perfect. I will have my cameraman help me with this one. I am done mixing the dough, so I want to show you how. Oops.
I gotta flip it.
And
I gotta flip it somehow.
okay, sorry, we have technical difficulties. There we go.
Flip it. There you go.
All right. So
Okay.
we have the dough. I already stopped the mixer. You can see that from the shaggy mats, we have pretty nice, you know, it almost clears the bowl. It is one big chunk. So I'm just gonna give it a little bit of kneading, form a bowl, put it back in the mixing bowl. I will cover it with shower cap, or you can put foil, you can put towel. I love shower caps, they come handy, they're reusable. And I'm gonna let it sit now until we're gonna roll it, and we can go back to Denisa.
And Deniso, before you take over, can we ask a couple of clarifying questions? I think
Absolutely.
wonderful. One of the questions was, if somebody doesn't have packaged baking powder, how much should they use for this recipe?
Let me take a peek. I would say it's about, and I'm terrible with measuring, I have to be very honest. I sort of follow my grandmother's recipe when you say přiměřeně, which is just about the right amount. So I would say this is about 2 tablespoons, 2 teaspoons perhaps. It has, I really can't see the measurements, but I would say, yeah, 2 tablespoons should be sufficient. But I have to be honest, I find this one a little more effective than the purchased one in the United States.
And is that, so what size, was that the vanilla sugar that you just showed?
No, this was the baking powder, but I see oh, wait, I do. No, I don't. They don't put the amount. Why don't we follow up with you guys and put it on our recipe? This says this is enough for half a kilo of flour. So again, nothing very specific, but I would say, yeah, maybe 2 teaspoons.
Okay, great. And then the vanilla sugar, how can you tell us what, you know?
So vanilla sugar, and those of you who are not familiar with it, again, you can buy it at Cost Plus. It's a German brand, the Duretker, very flavorful. I usually add it along with the sugar. I can add it now. Now, if you don't have this, you can also add regular vanilla, which I can do too. Again, I'm not very good with measuring, I apologize. And I would say it's about 1 teaspoon, but you don't have to. I know American recipes usually use the real vanilla or vanilla flavoring. I usually use the vanilla sugar just because it's part of the recipe and something I'm used to. Any more questions before I continue?
If you, yes, if you add the vanilla, the liquid vanilla, do you have to add sugar to it?
No.
And I think that's it for the question. Michelle is doing a fantastic job with the subtle sort of measurement details, where to find products. Thank you, Michelle. Really appreciate that. Continue, Denisa.
All right, so now that I've mixed the 1 cup of sugar, 4 whole eggs, and vanilla sugar, I'm gonna be adding the cream. And I usually add the whole pint, just gradually mixing it in. And it gets this really pretty light yellow color. There we go. So now we have a nice mixture to start with. Now to get the flour, I usually sift my flour, and I sift the flour that I already measured, and that's 2 cups of regular flour, and I mix it with the baking powder. So I sift it together. And I gradually add it to my liquid mixture. Now, at this point, when it's all combined, I'm gonna add the ground walnuts. I haven't really played around with it to see how it would impact the recipe if I added ground almonds or ground hazelnuts. I just typically add walnuts, which have a little bit higher level of fat in it. But I like the texture, and it sort of makes it, it feels like it makes it a little more, just a little more of a flavor. You could also add, at this point, you could add some lemon zest. Some people like that. So now the flour is incorporated. That's flour and the baking powder. And this is when I add my 2 cups of walnuts. Again, I already measured it.
Denisa, how was the whole pint of cream added to the eggs? I believe it was, right?
Yes.
And then how finely ground are the walnuts?
So I don't like to grind them too fine, because then it sort of loses the flavor. Now you don't want to have them just, I know you can purchase them either as whole or halves or parts. So I would grind them, but not to pulverize it and make it powder. It just wouldn't be, you want to taste it in the recipe or when you bite into it. All right, so this is the texture, and this is the dough that we can now pour into our prepared and floured, greased and floured mold. Now you can pour the whole thing in and be done with it. What I like to do is I pour just half of it, and I add to the second half some unsweetened cocoa. And again, you don't have to do that, but it's fairly typical that I'm trying to remember my grandma and my aunts and how they would make it. They would probably make it with butter, but as far as I can remember, they're usually dual flavor, dual color. So I would just pour it in, and I try to pour it in evenly, because what you don't want to do, you don't want to peel off the greased and floured part. So you sort of pour it in. And it's a relatively liquidy dough. It's not too tough. And this is up to your discretion, how much you want to have the part lighter or not. I usually just estimate. So this is how much I left inside my bowl to add the powdered, the cocoa. And this is, again, this is sort of depending on your preference. I sort of like it very chocolatey, so I add anywhere from 2 to 4 teaspoons. And then I'm finding out also that the Dutch cocoa, the unsweetened cocoa I purchased in the Czech Republic, is much stronger and has a stronger flavor and darker color than the one I purchased here. So again, depending on how chocolatey you want it.
And it looks like you've left about a quarter of the dough in there. Is that right? Would you say?
Yeah. Last time I was making it, I made too much of a chocolate part and I had some complaints. So again, it's a personal preference, and it's sometimes difficult to estimate what is half. Ideally, you want to do half. Sometimes, yeah, I think I did about a quarter. You're right. So, and now I just added, I don't know if you can see it, but I just added to the top.
I just like to volunteer, Dennis. So if you have complaints in the future, I'm available for you know, those.
And again, as I mentioned earlier, in some recipes, you can ask raisins, you can add raisins, you can add the zest, lemon zest, and make it a little more fruity.
You just muted yourself, Dennis, so can't hear you.
And this is where we put it in the oven. And I usually bake it for about 50 minutes at about 345. So I'm gonna stick it in the oven now, and I can hand it off back to Jana or to Milena, whoever is ready.
Can you hear me? Can folks hear me? Yes. So
Yes.
I'm in complete sort of chopping mode. I've peeled my 4 potatoes. I'm gonna maybe peel the carrots, but I'm gonna start chopping. And I'm a big fan of composting, so this is my composting bowl. The mushrooms are doing a really good job of hydrating, so they're happy. And this mucky brown water is the best part, so do not throw that away. And then I've noticed that some of the mushrooms that I'm rehydrating are too big. So I've also been chopping them up and I'm sticking them back into the liquid. So the last part is my mushrooms are sauteing nicely. Normally I saute the onion in the soup pot before I add the water. So normally the mushrooms get a little bit more surface area to get nice and brown, and sort of this is what we want. And I must admit, I cheated a little bit. I added more mushrooms than the recipe calls for, almost the entire bag, because the onion I chose today is a little big. So I may not put all of this into the soup, and it's okay. I'm making hamburgers for dinner tonight, so this can go on top of the hamburgers. So this might be too much for my soup. We'll play it by ear and we'll figure it out as we go. So I'm going to now start chopping my potatoes, start chopping my carrots, and then pretty soon I'm going to add some salt and pepper to my soup, my 8 cups of simmering chicken broth, half a teaspoon each, seasoned to taste. I like freshly ground pepper because, again, just like the caraway seeds, the fresher the spice, the better it is, the more fragrant it is. And I think that's it. I'm going to continue chopping. Milena, I think it's your turn.
Yep. Okay, we're gonna check on the meat and see how it's doing. It has been in for about, I think, 15 minutes now. So it's getting some nice color. We have the onions are turning like translucent. It still has a little bit of liquid on the bottom, so this is perfect. So we can keep it in the oven, close it up, and the knedlo, our dumpling dough, rested. So it relaxed a little bit. So now we're gonna shape the knedlo, and I'm gonna do it on my counter. I'm gonna put a little bit of flour on the bottom. And you can see the texture is a little softer then a Play-Doh. It could, it was really stiff in the beginning, but it relaxed a little bit, but I think we're gonna be fine. So we're gonna turn it over a couple of times. I do not turn it on the flour because the flour will coat it, and then you might end up with bigger seams on the knedlik log. So because the dough is not sticky at all, so you can do it just straight on the counter or on your wooden board or whatever prep area you have. And we're gonna cut it in half. And now we're gonna shape each half into a log. And the dough, if you can see that I roll it up, and when I get my hands off, it starts shrinking. It's one of the characteristics of the flour. So I'm gonna leave it go to the other one. It's gonna relax, and then I will go back to it. So again, I take my hands off, and you can see it shrinking. So I'm gonna leave it, go back to the other one, roll it out, and kind of go back and forth until I have 2 even logs. This looks pretty good. It has a little bit, like you can see, it has a little bit of seam. You might want to kind of pinch it together and re-roll it, but it's not that big of a deal. Like there is a little bit of seam right here. So we're just gonna pinch it together. There we go. And re-roll it. Now when they're rolled, then I'm gonna put them on my floured surface. And I'm gonna cover them with a tea towel. And for the boiling, you need to find the biggest, the widest pot you have in your kitchen, because they're gonna grow this way and this way. So you wanna have them in plenty of water. So this is my knedlik pot. I don't think I do anything else but that in it, but any wide pot would do. I have the water, I already pre-boiled the water because it takes a long time, but so we're ready. We're gonna wait for about 10 minutes for them to rest. And then I'm gonna turn the water back on and we will boil the knedlíky. And now it's time to start on the zeli, on the sauerkraut. Some people like sauerkraut, some people like their regular green cabbage with their pork and dumplings. It's usually more Moravian. When people don't use sauerkraut, they use the whole cabbage. I prefer sauerkraut, so we're making sauerkraut today. So I already pre-chopped some of the onions. And again, this is a matter of preference, how much onions you like. Usually for the 4-person family, I would use 1 onion. This was the half, which was left over from the onion, which went with the pork roast. So I'm gonna do 1 more half. And I'm gonna turn on the pot to heat it up. And these will go in. For the fat for sauerkraut, my preference is to use rendered fat from bacon because it smells really good. I do not have any at this point, so I'm just using avocado oil and, maybe 2 tablespoons. I'm just gonna, as Denisa said, přiměřeně, as Jan Very byl jednou jeden král mentioned, just about right to cover the bottom. And we're gonna add the onions. I'm gonna turn on the light so you can see better. And we're gonna saute the onions until they are nicely translucent and the edges will begin to brown and they turn nice and golden. So that's gonna take maybe 5 minutes. So while I'm doing this, before I go back to Jana, there's one more thing. This is the recipe my grandma, my dad's mom used to make, and it has caramelized sugar in it. So when we're gonna put the sugar in, they're gonna let it caramelize a little more before we add the zelo. And again, this is, you know, the spices are really tricky because it depends what you grew up on, what you're used to, what your taste preferences are. So don't be afraid to add or subtract the spices according to your liking, because you're gonna be ultimately the person who eats it. So you wanna make it so you like it. So if you can't have sugar for any reason, or if it doesn't sound good to you, I would go the first time, try it. Maybe you like it. And if not, then omit it the next time. And with any recipe, if something goes really, really wrong and you don't like it, don't give up. Cooking is a fabulous thing. And try it, give it another try. And if it doesn't work, even on the second try, then you know you can move on. But I can go back to Jana while the onions are being browned.
Milena, before you do, there was a question a little while back, and I want to make sure
Okay.
you do it. It had to do with the French bread. How exactly is that incorporated into the recipe?
Oh, okay. So it would go in when I made the dough. The dough is all together, and sometimes I use it especially when the dough is a little looser, because as I said, the bread will suck some of the moisture out of the rest of the mixture. So when it's in the pot, and I would do that by hand, I wouldn't do it with the machine on running. You know, you would put it on the counter, kind of flatten it out, then take the bread cubes, which are a little bit dry, but not totally dry, put them on and kind of fold the dough on top, give it a few pushes, turn it over. And, you know, as you're turning it, it will start coming out on certain, you know, sides. It's fine. So you would just turn it in, kind of make sure that it's incorporated all over. Did it answer the question?
I think so. That's very helpful. And thank you for your words of encouragement not to give up after a first, second, third, fourth, fifth try in my case. I will keep that in mind. Go ahead, Jana.
That little 2-minute Q&A helped me finish chopping. So I've chopped my 3 carrots. I actually wound up peeling them. I have my chopped carrots. I have my chopped 4 golden potatoes. I'm gonna go to the sink now and rinse the starch off of them. So I'm gonna do that. And the next thing I'm going to do, and I decided instead of trying to move my camera, I'm gonna bring the pot to you. So here we go. If you can see that. There's my chicken broth, my stock. I added the ½ teaspoon in salt and pepper in here, and the broth it's good. It's a great broth. It's a simple broth. I'm gonna I'm gonna fish out the chicken thighs. Dark meat is what you want to use, not white meat. It just dries out. And I may need to add a cup of water to this. Some of it has evaporated out into my very steamy kitchen now, but that's okay. That's the best part about soups. You can you can't mess it up. You just kind of go with the flow. You kind of see what you have and add and subtract as needed. So I'm gonna let this chicken cool off enough so I can take the meat off and chop it up. So this is gonna sit and cool while I add the carrots. Hang on, what just happened? That was weird. So here we go. I'm adding the carrots. I'm adding the potatoes. I'm going to add this cup of nice brown mushroom sauce and the hydrated porcini mushrooms. I'm going to add that in. And then I'm going to add and kind of check how much there is. I like this soup thick and hearty with lots of stuff in it because it quite often is the meal with maybe some homemade sourdough rye bread that maybe we'll do next time. And so I have a lot of this, the mushrooms with the onions, but look at this, it shrunk quite a bit. And this is almost the entire bag of the porcini mushrooms. It was a lot. And it just all shrinks when you saute it. So I'm gonna start by putting half of it in, and then we'll see. If I want more, I can add more, but there's not a lot left. Look at that. So we'll see. I'm gonna put it back on my, where are my pot holders? I'm gonna put it back onto the stove, and it needs, 10 to 15 minutes for the carrots and the potatoes to cook. The nice thing is, let me just put myself on video. The nice thing is that the small pieces of potato allow me to cook the soup pretty quickly. Let's see, I'm half Czech and half Slovak. So I've also grown up getting soup from my Slovak aunt, who at the moment is 93 years old, still living in Bratislava. And we talk every Sunday morning, and I always get a recipe from her. So it's become a nice little tradition in this COVID year to to get a recipe from her. And her chicken noodle soup is amazing. And it's very brothy and simple and done in an hour. So soups can be hearty and full of stuff, or they can be simple broth with capellini noodles and a little bit of carrots for color. So I need my soup to cook for about 10 to 15 minutes. Someone asked about the marjoram. Yes, I grab spices when I go, lots of them. And the marjoram is going to be added at the end because it loses its flavor if you let it cook too long. So I have my little jar, my little bit of marjoram. And I don't know, I think we're going to come back to me when the soup is done. I also have some fresh parsley that I'm going to cut up to garnish the soup with. And are there any questions?
I don't see any questions specifically at this point. I wanted to ask folks to, the soup is such, the way I grew up, soup was such an important component of a meal that my grandparents always served, my parents also served. I wanted to ask, and a couple people already mentioned this in the chat, what traditional Czech soups did you grow up on? What are your favorites? I mean, the Czech sort of, the way I understand it, soups are the start of a meal because they get the stomach juices going, they help you sort of stimulate your appetite, and then they actually help with digestion. They have this sort of physiological benefit. So is that your understanding of soup? And again, what are some of your favorites? We'd love to hear just and have an interactive way of having you share your experience with Czech food and maybe inspire us to consider making other soups in the future. And I think at this point too, are any of the other chefs ready? I know we've got a lot of things in ovens and on stoves. Milena, are you geared up to go? Or okay, I think we'll turn it over to Milena.
Yes, I would love to, as people are also, I'd love to read in the chats your soup experiences. Slovak kapusta, yes, thank you. All right, thank you.
Okay, so if you can look into my pot, welcome to my pot. You can see the onion is nice and golden. So for the 32-ounce jar of sauerkraut, I'm gonna use about 2 tablespoons. It's just regular plain sugar. You're gonna sprinkle it on top of the onions and stir it in. At this point, you really wanna stir it up because sugar burns quickly. But we want the sugar to turn into caramel. So that's gonna take maybe 30 seconds. And you can already see, like, you know, I don't know if you can see it, it kind of starts sizzling at the bottom. And it's turning a little darker, but you know, you just want to have nice, beautiful brown color. If it turns black for whatever reason you had to answer a phone, start over. You know, you're not gonna fix it. If once the sugar burns, it's gonna be bitter and not good. And so you just wanna have it nice and brown. Sometimes you can save things, sometimes you have to just give it up. So this is ready for the zeli, for the sauerkraut. So I make my own sauerkraut, but the store-bought is just fine. So this is about 32 ounces. And we're just gonna dump it in there. And again, the 32 ounce should be plenty for dinner or lunch for 4 people with maybe a little bit of leftover for the next day's lunch. And we're gonna stir it up. If the sauerkraut is too wet, you wanna drain it first and then maybe add some of the liquid. Or when you have it in a can, you might wanna taste it before you put it in there, and you will see if it's too sour, then you would wanna put the water, the liquid brine, which is in there on the side. So the final product wouldn't be too sour. So now we mix the onions with the sauerkraut. We do love caraway seeds, and caraway seeds actually help you with digestion. So some people have problem with sauerkraut that, you know, it does create gas. So the caraway seeds might help with digesting. And this is it. So just turn it over, put the lid on, and that is done. And we're gonna leave it on simmer for about 10 minutes. And now my water is boiling, so we're ready to put the dumplings, the knedlo, in. So they expanded a little bit, but you can see that they do relax kind of this way. So if the dough was any more looser, you would just have a flat pancake thing. So you want them to be nice and, you know, shapely. So you either can do it with your hand. I love this, the dough scraper. It will help you get it off the counter. And I put them in with the upside down. So that's one. And the other one. And put the lid back on and turn the timer on for 8 minutes. And after 8 minutes, we're gonna turn them over. So I'm gonna turn my timer for 8 minutes. And then we're gonna finish after 8 minutes on the other side. And
while
we
you're setting that timer, yep, go ahead.
And we can, I think, if nobody has any questions, we can go to Denisa to see how the babovka is doing.
I think
Yes,
there's
I
a couple of questions.
Yes,
I have one more thing. We need to check on the meat. And, oh, it's getting nice and golden. So we might want to put some of the juice from the bottom over the meat so it will stay nice and juicy. And after we poured the juice from the pan over, we can put some water under. You never want to, and just a little bit, you know, so this will create a nice gravy for the top of the roast. And you never want to put the water over your meat because you will wash off all the spices and all the goodness. So you always poléváme, nejdřív poléváme, potom podléváme. First we pour over and then we pour under the water. The juice goes over, water goes under. Okay, I'm done.
That's great. That's good to know. When it comes to the sauerkraut, this is fascinating. Somebody says their mother uses an apple instead of sugar. I found that, it's just these little tricks that individuals use. Fascinating. Did you use any vinegar with the?
No.
Nope, none.
Nope,
And
none.
how do you feel about rinsing it before you cook it?
Again, totally preference what your palate is used to. If you don't care for too much sourness or tartness, then go for it and rinse it. If you do like sour flavors, then don't. You have to play with this because it really, you're gonna be the one eating it, so you need to make it so you like it.
That's fair enough. There's a lot of sort of talk about the flour, and it is Vondra. Thank you.
No.
Oh,
No.
it's not. I'm sorry.
It's all-purpose flour. It's you don't need a Vondra to make a knedlo. It's all-purpose flour. Actually, I do like Bob's Red Mill, but actually I'm gonna show you the one I'm buying. It is from Costco.
It was Denisa who was using the Vondra. I got it mixed up, I think. Yeah.
It's just the organic all-purpose flour, and I love this flour because it makes wonderful baked goods. It makes good knedlíky. It's a good flour. So you can make knedlík with just regular all-purpose flour.
Fantastic. Let's see.
Okay, if it starts boiling over, just turn it down and tilt the lid. But you can see they already are expanding, that now they're pretty much taking the whole pot. So they're already growing. Okay.
If somebody says that their dumplings never look like a sponge with nice fluffy holes, they are hard as rocks, what can you suggest?
I would say the yeast, there's not enough yeast, because yeast is what makes it soft. And or if you overcook it, and we're gonna do it after I take them out, you poke them with a skewer to let the steam escape. If you don't let the steam escape, it kind of hits the surface of the dumpling and goes back, and it kills, because the moisture will just fill all the little holes which were in the dumpling. And then, so that could be the second reason.
Thank you very much. Two more quick ones. Just what brand sauerkraut do you use, and what brand of yeast did you use today?
I use the Costco yeast, but I bake a lot. So, it's a big box, but you can get the Fleischmann at Safeway or Lucky's or any store, with the little packets, and then you would use one packet per 3 cups. And with the sauerkraut, I do make my own, because I prefer to have only, the salt and sauerkraut and caraway seeds and onions in it, no other preservatives and stuff. But I think it's called Steinfeld, something like that, in the store. Or I actually have used before the Safeway brand, and it was fine.
Very good. Just a clarifying question. Is it fast rising yeast?
Oh boy, I think it's called instant yeast. I do not have the package because I put it in glass and actually store it in the fridge. I get it out of their packaging because yeast does not like too much air, but I think it's called instant. But either would work. Don't overthink it.
Thank you very much. All right, pass it on to whoever is next, please.
Well, babovka is not ready yet, but I was going to show the 2 different types of finish. One is that you can just pour powdered sugar on top. It looks pretty. it's a little bit sweet and it adds visually, and it's a very common way to finish a babovka. What my family likes is to use this brand of rum, which is the Czech rum. And in our family, it sort of is like liquid gold because you can't purchase it here. It's only in the Czech Republic. And I mix rum with powdered sugar. And when I get the right consistency, then I cover the finished product. So we're still baking. We're going to have maybe 15 more minutes of baking. Sometimes I poke it with skewer just to see if it is done or not. If it comes out clean, it's done. If it isn't, then I leave it there longer. It's risen nicely. I just took on it and it's not done yet. So I don't know where Jana is, how Jana is doing on her soup.
All right, hang on. Can you hear me? Am I unmuted? So the soup has a lot of stuff in it. The proportions are a little off. It's very thick, and I haven't even added the chicken. So I'm gonna add a cup of water, re-season to taste, and there'll be more. So I'm totally happy. I'm going to add the marjoram in a little bit, and I'm gonna go with 2/3 to 3/4 of the chicken, see how it is. Probably just add it all in later anyway. And add a little bit more water. Almost a cup. I'm gonna add a cup. There we go. And season, I'm probably gonna add a little bit more salt and pepper to it. And continue cooking. The potatoes are almost done. The carrots are definitely done. So I will have my soup before 12:30. This will be perfect.
And Jano, if I can interrupt just for a second, this is time sensitive. Milano, do you want to show us what you have to do at this point?
Yep, I'm ready. Okay, the timer's going off, so I'm gonna reset it for another 8 minutes. And we're gonna, oops, there we go. Okay, now, I again will use my dough scraper. We're gonna turn them over very gently. Oh, they look beautiful. There we go. And now the timer goes for another 8 minutes. And that was all. So we can go back to whoever's ready, or if we have any questions, we can answer questions.
Jano, are you ready?
Yeah, I can continue. I put the pot back on the stove, and so the one surprise for me is that the first time using the dried mushrooms, they puffed up bigger than my ants. And you know what? That's okay. Adding that cup of water is giving me the kind of soup that I like. I'm gonna have a very hearty soup for lunch. I'm going to add the marjoram right now. Just add it in. Everything's about a half a teaspoon. I used a half a teaspoon of crushed caraway seeds for the mushrooms, which then become part of the soup. Half a teaspoon salt, half a teaspoon freshly ground pepper, and now half a teaspoon of the marjoram. I'm going to keep it simmering. Of course, at this point, I have it with the lid off, so the potatoes can outgas. You don't want to have anytime you have potatoes in your pot, you want to keep the lid off so it can outgas. But I also wanted to say that I do happen to have a bottle of beer in my refrigerator, which goes very well with Czech food right here. There you go, right there. So a must in my household. All right, I can pass it on to Denisa at this point. Is that babovka ready?
No, not yet. We need about 10 more minutes.
So I think, Milano, I saw you take the meat out of the oven. If you are ready to share with us that'd be great. Oh, Milano, we can't hear you.
Okay, there we go. I got it out of the oven little late, but not too big of a deal. Usually you want to get it out when it's about 135, because as you can see on the thermometer, it will keep going up for maybe another 10 degrees. I got it out when it was about 140. So now I'm just gonna cover it up with the foil and we're gonna let it rest. If you cut it right now, all the beautiful juice from the meat would run out. The reason why you let it sit on the counter for maybe 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, the juice will soak back into the meat. So when you slice it and present it on your plate, it's gonna be nice and flavorful and juicy. And we're getting close to the dumplings. We have about 4.5 minutes. So the water is boiling. So we can check on the sauerkraut. And
Okay. Oh,
How much sugar you want to add, so I just left the.
leave it on the
And-
counter. I'll come get it. Thank you. Thank you.
and it's almost ready. You know, the sauerkraut does not really need too much time, you know, maybe 10 minutes or something. I'm gonna raise the temperature a little. So, you know, you can, when you look into the pot, there is some of the liquid, which I kind of want to cook out, so it wouldn't be too liquidy on your plate. So I won't put the lid back on. Some people use flour or a roux to thick, you know, to kind of soak up, you know, to finish their sauerkraut. Some people grate a raw potato, you know, peeled raw potato. They put it in there for the last 10 minutes to thicken it. My family likes it just natural like this with no thickener. So that's what I'm doing. So, but if you're used to having it more, then the liquid would be soaked up by either the potato or the, you know, you need some kind of a starch. So either the potato or the flour, but you can play with that if you're used to that. We like it just totally natural and plain, and you can see that it really takes just a few minutes for the liquid to evaporate. So I think the zeli is done, and pretty much we're just waiting now for the dumpling. And we have still 2.5 minutes. So
And while we wait for those, can I ask you a couple of questions?
ask away.
All right. Do you make a gravy for the dumplings?
No, we use the juice which is underneath the pork. So that's why you want to add that little 1/4 cup, 1/2 cup of water, or you can use broth or water or broth, or maybe even like beer. The beer might be good actually for this purpose if you have a leftover. And you pour just that juice on top of the meat and the dumplings.
Beer, it just has so many functions, doesn't it?
Beer for you.
Yes, exactly. Can you freeze dumplings, and for how long?
Totally. As I mentioned in the beginning, I double the batch. So when these would come out, the next 2 would come in. And when they're fully cooled down, I'm gonna take this off. When they're fully cooled down, you never want to freeze anything what is not, or wrap anything what's not fully cooled down. You wrap it in like cling wrap, or you know, like stretch wrap, and then put them in Ziploc or an aluminum foil. Put them in the freezer, and you know, a couple months would be fine. There is not much what would go wrong, except that they would dry out or get the freezer burn. Thank you. And then I would take them out the night before, and to warm them up, I prefer steaming them. You don't want to you can't put them in a microwave. I found them that out of the microwave, they're kind of toughen up and, you know, more chewy, but I use a steamer, something like this, or it can be the middle one, which looks like this. And you put a little bit of water on the bottom of your pot, slice the dumpling into slices, and set it on top. You don't want the water cover that, it needs to be below, so there needs to be less water than the little legs on your steamer. And maybe 5 minutes on steam, and it will beautifully steam them up, warm them up, and make them nice and moist. And I think that's about it. So I think these are ready to come out. And this is now where your kids can come and help you, because this was the favorite things my boys used to do when they were little. When the dumpling comes out, you take a skewer and you just poke, 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 poke for the steam to escape. As I mentioned before, you want the steam to go out to preserve the nice holes inside of the knedlo, to keep it nice and fluffy. And when you slice hot knedlíky, I prefer doing it with a thread. You can use unflavored dental floss or regular, this is just a regular sewing thread. And we can do it on the counter, where, you know, we can look in the middle, see if they are really, so you put the thread underneath, you cross your hands and you just pull. And there we go. There we go. So I'm gonna slice these into, you know, they're maybe 1/2 inch thick. You know, when you can do it with a knife, but I feel that, again, you push too much, you squish them, you squish them. I can actually, we can do an experiment. You can, I'm gonna do it over. You see, like when I push on it with the knife, it kind of squishes it, you see? So that's not ideal. So we're not gonna do that anymore. And just continue doing that with the string. Okay, so our dumplings are done. Our zeli is done. So I'm gonna plate. And we're getting ready to slice the meat. This, and we can cover those with some olive oil. Keep it warm until everything is done. Our soup. In to keep them from cooling down too much. Dennis, so how are you looking?
I just checked on babovka and I think I need about 3 more minutes.
Okay,
And
perfect.
then I can take it out. And after I take it out, we need to let it cool before we can take it out of the mold. It needs to cool off a little bit before it comes out of the mold. So I need about 3 more minutes before pulling it out.
Okay, so I can slice the meat then.
Yep.
Perfect.
I'm gonna cut in for a moment just to show you that I have served the soup. It's not too much. This is the consistency and the combination of liquid to food. Garnished it with parsley, and I'm ready for the first course of our meal right here. Milano, do you want to show us your meat?
Yes, I was washing my knife. So I need a fork. So the meat is rested, it's nice and golden. So here, this is the sauce, you know, the onions and the garlic and some of the juice, which we're gonna serve with the meat. You could make a gravy out of it. I don't think why not. Like if you like gravy on turkey, and who doesn't, you know, you could do it the same way that you would put this on the stove and then use all-purpose flour and a little bit of broth. So I think if you like it that way, go for it. Again, you know, it's you who is going to be eating it. So I think that might be actually really good. I never really thought about it because that's not how I was brought up with it. But I think it's a good idea. Why not? Because again, it's all about the gravy. And we're gonna slice the meat. So this chunk of meat I have, oh, it's beautiful. So you can see all the juice stayed in. And this chunk of meat was 2 pounds. So, and I will easily 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So would make at least 9 slices if I serve 2 pieces with, I have big men in my household, so they would take 2. I think I'm gonna be fine with 1. So you definitely would feed 4 and have some leftovers for the next day. So I can put the whole meal on the plate now. We have the 4 dumplings. Again, it depends how hungry you are. We're gonna take some of the sauerkraut on your plate. Go. And do the slice of meat. And we're gonna put some juice. Some people like it over the dumplings. I am one of them. My kids like it over the meat because they say it makes the dumplings too soggy. So again, you do what you prefer, and voila, here we go.
Milano, you should start a Czech restaurant. I mean, really, that looks like
Yeah.
that looks like a great deal. Yeah, yeah.
No, I love cooking. I do it for fun. Once you do, but restaurant, it would become work. I like it fun.
Fair enough, fair enough. I did want to let our audience members know we're running just a couple minutes behind. This is being recorded. The recording will be sent to you. If you need to go, we understand. But I think we're on the verge here of being just about done. Milano, one quick last question. Did you say for freezing the knedlíky, do you cut them before you freeze them, or when do you cut them?
I cut them before you serve them, before you heat them up. You freeze them whole.
Thank you very much. And then there was still a little bit of, people did want to know precisely what type of yeast do you use. And I know I've had personally trouble with yeast too. So maybe we can put that in our follow-up email.
Okay.
What you can buy at Costco, which type of yeast, and then what you can get at Safeway that you'd recommend.
Okay, I will do that. Very good.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much. Dennis, so are you ready at this point?
Well, our babovka, make sure I'm on. Can you hear me? Yeah. So our babovka is ready. I just pulled it out of the oven. I am not ready to turn it over. It just really needs to sit and cool for at least 5 to 10 minutes before you can take it. What you do is when it's cool, you put it upside down on your plate. And then, as I said, you can either put powdered sugar or you mix powdered sugar. And again, I like to use rum and make it consistency so that it's not too runny, but not but liquidy enough that you can spread it around and it sort of spreads all over. So that I'll make it after we're done, and I can take a picture and send it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. There was still a little bit clarification needed about the consistency of the walnuts when they're ground. And somebody has put into the chat, Dennis, so a link to a picture to see if that's the desired consistency. I don't know if you can look at it, but if not, then maybe that's something that we can put into the follow-up email as well.
Yeah, and again, I would grind it to have it so you can feel the texture. You don't want it as ground as, for example, almond flour. That's too fine. But you don't want to have big chunks. Now, you certainly can if you like that. You could also add chocolate chips if you like that. So it sort of depends on the taste.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dennis. And Jano, did you want to say anything else, or did any of the chefs have some parting words or tips? I think there was something. What did you use to garnish your soup with, Jano?
I use parsley, curly parsley. It also has some digestive benefits. It is not just pretty, it also helps with digestion. So here is my soup, which like I said, I liked. At first I thought I had added too many mushrooms or too much of something. And all I did was add another cup of water to the soup, added a little bit of rice, salt and pepper. And I have a little bit more soup than I thought, and that's okay.
That is always okay. Chefs, any other parting words?
If anybody has any questions, they can, we're going to be sending out the follow-up with the video, again, the recipes. We will add all the links which we discussed in the chat. And if they have any further questions, please feel free to write an email to Sokol SF, and we will try to get back to you as soon as we can.
Absolutely. And we forgot a very important thing, which was just mentioned in the chat. We forgot to remind our audience members to have some Plzeň on hand to go with this delicious meal. That is key here. I want to thank you all so much for participating today. You will get a recording of this. If you liked our event today, I encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter, which you can do on the Sokol SF website. You will find out about events like this and many others in person and virtual. We've got some fun hikes coming up, a puppet performance live from Prague at the beginning of June. So be on the lookout for that. And I like the idea that came up in the chat about going mushroom picking, although we may need our participants to sign waivers in advance so that nobody gets hurt. Enjoy your Sundays. Good luck with these. Go ahead.
One more thing. If you enjoyed this show and you have some recipes you would like to learn, please let us know. We're always looking for feedback. If you're signing up if you signed up to our newsletter, there's always our email address in that one. Any activity you would enjoy, we're always looking for suggestions and ideas. So please feel free to get back to us, and don't be shy.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Dobro.